Hey now, all of you monster maniacs out there, it is Black Metal Werewolf with a brand new installment of Horror News, the segment where we will be digging up and dissecting all of the latest and greatest news in the realm of murderers and monsters, psychos and slashers. And today, we have a very big update in regards to one of the greatest cult classic television shows to ever exist, the Munsters. If you are watching this video, you probably already know all about the Munsters, but for those of you who don't, I will give a brief overview. The Munsters was a family-friendly sitcom that aired on CBS in the mid-60s, and it was about your average American family. Except for the fact that these were not average people because they were monsters. Except for their niece Marilyn, and she didn't see anything strange or odd about her extended family. Unfortunately, the show only lasted for 2 seasons before it got cancelled, but reruns continued to air on a regular basis for years afterwards, and that created a very strong and loyal fan base. And after all of that, the Munsters ended up being in 3 feature-length movies, one of them being directed by Rob Zombie, 2 made-for-TV movies, an animated TV special back in the 70s, a revival series that surprisingly lasted for 3 seasons back in the late 80s and early 90s, and there was a failed revival back in 2012. You would think that after all of that, the Munsters would finally be dead and gone. After all, a lot of these revivals and movies weren't very good. But these undead freaks cannot be kept down for long, because according to BloodyDisgusting.com, the Munsters are set to make yet another rise from the grave. But before we get into today's video, don't forget to look up Black Metal Werewolf on Facebook and on Instagram, and you can check out my paranormal podcast, The Lost Campfire, on Spotify. And if you have your very own paranormal story that you would like to share, you can send it to thelostcampfire@gmail.com. I can't wait to hear what you guys have experienced and to share it with other paranormal enthusiasts. But now, let's get to the video. 1313. James Wan producing horror reboot of The Munsters. In the wake of Rob Zombie's direct-to-video movie, The Munsters, back in 2022, Universal has announced 1313, a brand new small-screen reboot of the iconic television series. Developed and produced by James Wan's company, Atomic Monster, the new Universal horror series is said to be, quote, a reimagining of the 1964 classic sitcom, The Munsters, that lives and breathes within the Universal Monsterverse, end quote. Lindsay Anderson Beer, Pet Sematary Bloodlines, will serve as the showrunner for 1313. The title is, of course, a reference to the Munsters family's address, 1313 Mockingbird Lane. Deadline notes in their report, the project is being developed by James Wan, Beer, and Ingrid Bisu for UCP. Atomic Monster and Lab Brew are the production companies. Executive producers are Lindsay Anderson Beer, James Wan, Michael Clear, and Rob Hackett for Atomic Monster. Ingrid Bisu is a co-executive producer for the upcoming series. If you want to revisit the original series, The Munsters is streaming on Peacock. The series ran for just 2 seasons between 64 and 66, spawning several feature films and a sequel television series titled The Monsters Today, 1988 to 91. More recently, Brian Fuller's Mockingbird Lane reimagining series for NBC, but never made it past the pilot episode. While various actors have played the roles across the decades, the core of The Munsters has largely remained the same, with the various shows and movies documenting the wacky lives of the lovable family of monsters. What does a dark reimagining entail, you ask? We expect to find out more soon. Stay tuned. So that's the news. Now let's discuss it. So, initially hearing this news, I was quite excited, because I would love to see the Munsters back on TV again. It was a great show that I can watch any time of the day, and it will always put a smile on my face. However, there are some things in that article that scare the crap out of me. Now, according to this article, they are saying that this is going to be a reimagining of the 1964 classic. So that scares the crap out of me. Because if the last few years have taught us anything, when a production company takes a beloved classic and reimagines it for a modern audience, it rarely turns out well. All you have to do is ask Disney how well that's turning out for them.
Good Lord, what is happening in there?
Now, it is unfair to say that what Disney is doing to all of their classic, Universal is going to do to theirs. I know Universal really treasures their classic monsters, so I can't imagine they would allow a production company to take one of their beloved properties and butcher it. But you would think that Disney wouldn't allow that either, so at this point to me, it's kind of a crapshoot. Are they going to butcher it, or are they going to do a faithful reimagining of the Munsters? I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how well things turn out, because, that article didn't give a lot of details, so we're just going to have to wait for more information to come out before I start judging it unfairly. Also, according to this article, the showrunner for 1313 is going to be Lindsay Anderson Beer. For those of you who don't know, she wrote and directed Pet Sematary Bloodlines that came out last year. So if you have seen that movie, you know how god-awful it was. So why they saw that terrible movie and thought, this is the person that we should get to run this show, once again, that's very, very concerning. Now, before I wrap everything up here, I just want to give my 2 cents about this reimagined Munsters TV show. I want this to be successful. I want this to go on TV, and it to be great, and it to last for several seasons. That would be a dream come true. But is that going to happen? I hate to say it, but probably not. Mostly because I do not think that there are enough Munsters fans out there to sustain a TV show's production. Now, if anyone remembers the Rob Zombie movie that came out 2 years ago, it was not received well. Even though I actually personally liked it, I thought it was quite entertaining. But the people who did watch it, most of them didn't like it. And that's just the people who watched it. A lot of people never even watched it, because most people don't know what the Munsters is these days. Yes, the Munsters does have a very strong fan base, but that fan base isn't very big. The Munsters isn't a mainstream thing anymore. It used to be decades ago, but I bet if I were to go out on the street and talk to people, some people might remember it, some people might kind of know what I'm talking about, but I guarantee you most people probably haven't seen the original show, or any of the movies, or the Reboot series, or anything like that. So, I mean, they're really rolling the dice on a property that most people don't remember. But fuck, most people who watched the show back in the 60s aren't even alive anymore. A lot of the fan base is not there to watch it. So, even if the show was great, I doubt it's going to get the ratings to justify even getting a second season. They'd be lucky if they are even allowed to finish out the first season, if this even gets off the ground. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that the show comes out and it's a smash hit and everybody loves it, but I really doubt it. Just look back at 2012. They tried to do Mockingbird Lane, which was going to be a Munsters reboot, and it was a pilot, and that was it. It never got past that. I think it aired once on NBC as a Halloween special, and then it was never heard from again. Okay, one more point before I'm done here. What the hell is with that name? 1313. So back in 2012, there was Mockingbird Lane. Now we get 1313. After this show fails, are we going to get another reboot in 10 years and just name it after the Munsters postal code? Like, I don't get this trajectory of just naming it after their street address when they could just call it The Munsters. That's the name of the show. That's what gives it the marquee value. That's what's going to draw people in. Just calling it 1313 or Mockingbird Lane, most people don't know that's their street address, so they think that's going to draw people in. I don't think that's going to work. Okay, that's enough of my jabbering for one video, so now I want to get your guys' opinion on all of this. Are you excited for this new reimagining of the Munsters, or do you think it's going to crash and burn? Please tell me what you think down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.